I don't know what that noise was, Claire, but it was hilarious. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 154. Tonight, am I still yelling?
No.
Okay, because I've been yelling all day. I don't know why. My voice is like extra amplified. Back in Los Angeles is your...
I'm sorry.
You can already hear one of our guests. I have a feeling this is going to be a really fun show. She's giggly, and I don't know how giggly David is, but I'm sure he's extra giggly. We're joined by two amazing athletes on tonight's show who this past weekend did some pretty damn awesome things. A whole bunch of races took place this weekend in crazy weather. We're going to talk all a bit about.
You're nailing it tonight.
Man, I thought I got enough sleep after tour, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I just need more beer. We're going to talk about Black Canyon's 100K, the USATF 50K championships, red hot, everything. A lot of stuff happened this weekend, so really excited to talk about it. But our guests tonight, David Roche and Clare Gallagher, podiumed in their respective races, but overcame some interesting stories leading up to these races. And I think that's what kind of sets them apart. They had some big weeks, lots of traveling, and one of them almost killed their dog. We're going to talk about it on tonight's show. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 154. It begins.
Ginger Runner.
Yes! What is up? So excited for tonight's show. As I say that every week, tonight especially so, because both of our guests have never been on the show before. We should do individual shows for both of them because they totally deserve it. But they have unique stories. They are connected in a way. One is the coach of another, but they also had unique stories that they overcame. Some interesting stories this week to podium in their races that occurred this last weekend. I just want to introduce them because I feel like this show is just going to start rolling. So let me introduce first Mr. David Roche. What is up, my friend?
Yay! Hey, how's it going?
Good. Great to finally have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me into your recording dungeon. It's an honor.
Well, I was gonna say ours is like we have like the wood and the trophies and stuff. Where are you coming to us from?
I think it's a hostage video, possibly. Blair Witch Project. I don't get many media requests in our little 300 square foot apartment.
David is in an episode of Saw. He has 40 minutes to get out. We hope he survives.
We can relate to your small size living accommodation.
This is all Hollywood smokes and mirrors.
Smokes,
lots of cigarettes.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically we could reach wall to wall here. We're also joined by the incredible young and like upcoming talent, Ms. Clare Gallagher. What's going on, Clare?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
All of our viewers have already, they've heard you giggling in the background. They know.
Sorry.
No, it's awesome. I'm glad that you're happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah.
Sweet.
That's it.
See, I like that. That's why I'm excited for tonight's show. I was like, screw all the introductions. Let's just get into this thing because I feel like our guests, they know each other. David, what's your guys' connection? You know each other outside of Ginger Runner Live, obviously.
So
pleasure meeting you, David.
Yeah. I don't know who this girl is. She just like makes sounds like a Campbell's soup commercial. When the thing started, she was like, but no, so I got to meet Claire last year for the first time. I think in one of her big national races that she first burst onto the scene at the US 30K Trail Champs, where she rocked it and finished second. And like anyone who's met Claire,
his wife.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other story. But anyone who's ever met Claire knows that, she has this like effervescent joy about her that she crossed the finish line and, everyone else is dead tired and Claire's just like happy and like such a joy for everyone around. And so my wife and I got to meet her, my wife Megan. And then I read an article about her for Trail Runner after she finished second or won Leadville and the second fastest time ever.
Yep.
Started coaching her near the end of the year. And so hopefully we'll be coaching her for a long time as she dominates like the international ultra scene.
What he didn't say is why I'm smiling at the end is maybe I'm better at killing brain cells than most people and running.
I think it's good. It's good. And it's great to have you guys both on because I know that you guys know each other well. And as a coach, I'm sure you know your athletes pretty well and know the ins and outs of their training and stuff like that. So I think we'll be able to get some good insight into how Claire prepared for this, not only from her, but also from the coach's perspective. And it's a unique thing, and I'm excited about tonight's show. So a lot happened this last weekend. Well, one, I got back from tour. This is the first show back from tour with A Decade On.
And my first show back in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, right? Because you were from here while we were in Nashville doing our live show last week from Nashville. And just a reminder for those who maybe are tuning in for the first time tonight or who tune in regularly, Kim.
I am in the chat room as always. So if you guys have questions for Claire or for David, just ask them throughout the show, and I'll be pulling them all hour long.
Yeah, right. And I feel like we're going to get lots of questions tonight, so please just bring them on. And of course, I have to give a big shout out to Creature Comforts from Athens, Georgia. Got this beer from some viewers and people who drove hours to come see our show in Athens. This was my favorite beer I've had in probably 2 years. I mean, it's fantastic. And I managed to steal Brian Morrison's 6-pack. Don't tell Brian. He probably is watching now and is pissed. Okay, so our guests on tonight's show this last weekend ran in some big races. So the USATF 50K championships were this weekend, which David ran in, and Black Canyon 100K was this weekend as well, which is a Western States qualifier, the golden ticket race. Top 2 men, top 2 women get automatic entries into the Western States 100, and one of our guests managed to snag one of those coveted 2 spots. Claire qualified for the Western States golden ticket by placing second and just crushing it in what I can imagine is crazy weather and nasty conditions. I want to start with Claire because I know she's on a bit of a tighter schedule tonight. So Claire, let's first talk about how did you kind of splash into the trail running scene? We can kind of briefly touch on this before we get into Black Canyon, but what was your big introduction to the scene, and when did you really begin to fall in love with it? Because it was fairly recent, right? It wasn't like decades ago.
Yeah, David knows this because when we met or talked in depth. But so actually, I ran in college, which I mean it's fair. People like to skip that, but that counts for something. You know, yeah. So I ran on the East Coast and I was injured a lot, and it just, it's so fast and whatnot. And then I my first ultra was in Thailand, in a remote hill tribe village in the Golden Triangle of like Myanmar and Laos. I actually have my Southeast Asia map, but it's okay, we won't go there. Anyways, yeah, it was a really raw introduction to the sport. I needed a hobby because I was teaching in the South in this rural village. Fishing village, didn't have much to do, so I decided to maybe pick up ultras. That's kind of what happened. So I would spend my weekends running and exploring Buddhist temples and all that cool stuff. And then I really enjoyed this first ultra I did. It was an 80K, and Timmy Olsen actually just ran it this past year in its second running. Yeah, so I hope to go back to that. Anyways, then I moved back to the States eventually, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually a real thing. And this past summer is when I really came out, more or less.
And yeah, you came out with a bang, winning Leadville 100 in the second fastest time for a female ever, your first 100 as well. Was that an eye-opening experience for you, or was it, oh, I'm just getting started?
Well, I pretty much blacked out the whole thing. So,
well, you won the Leadville 100. I don't know if you knew this.
Oh
really fast, yeah. Surprise! And it was on frosting. You survived on frosting and Snickers bars. It was really cool. It was great.
No, yeah, that was a crazy, really life-changing experience, and I loved it so much, and I was so fortunate and blessed in so many ways around that one particular race and event, that I realized, well, I don't want to leave this community, even if I don't continue to like run at that level. Like I'm so to be a part of this community. So yeah. And frankly, I really like the 100-mile distance. I mean, at least I only have one experience, but I'm really excited to do more 100-milers. I feel like the slower, the better almost.
The slow, long grinds. Yeah. I think most ultra runners and most live viewers can definitely relate to that. We already have some questions here from the live audience, so let's go for it.
Yeah, question from Raul in the chat room. Question for Claire. The one thing that stood out from other interviews were your choices of fuel. Example, cake frosting. Did you make any interesting food choices for Black Canyon?
Yeah, that's a great question. So since I was coming straight from Cuba, I didn't have the most, I was not ad hocing it, but I think I relied actually too heavily on gels this time. And because it was so cold, I had a ton of Sour Patch Kids. That's my favorite fuel is Sour Patch Kids. I prefer those over frosting. Just like the chewiness of them, but it was too cold to chew. So I used
talking to some Sour Patch
That's what
Kids.
I ate during the Peak 12 hour.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's great. And so I ended up, the best thing I had was I dipped potatoes into salt late in the race because my hand swelled really, really badly. And I was kind of worried about that, and I couldn't remember what that meant, like, oh, is it too much salt? Is it too much water? What's happening? And so I was just like potatoes and salt became the go-to. So nothing crazy. I didn't even go with the frosting in Black Canyon, which I think I regret in hindsight.
We need a frosting sponsor. I'm pretty sure. Western States.
I have a frosting sponsor now, but it's coconut oil based. Frosted. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's outstanding. Yeah, it's really good. Anyway,
breaking news. I think this might be the first frosting sponsor in ultra running.
Oh yeah, no, she sponsors 2 other girls in Boulder. Actually, yeah.
Oh,
see, it doesn't look great. Turmeric coconut. It's better on other things.
It's going to be empty by the time the show is over. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, you touched on it very briefly. You were in Cuba the week leading up to the race, maybe longer. You can definitely help kind of lay out the story there, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to bring both of our guests on tonight, because they both overcame interesting circumstances leading into these races and still managed to podium. So Claire, you were in Cuba the week of this race. What were you doing there, and what was that experience like to travel and have to kind of overcome all that?
Yeah, so I was with this organization based in Boulder called One World Running, and they've gone for the past 20 years to Cuba, Honduras, Guatemala, Haiti, Belize, Cameroon, all these places to bring running shoes to people who need shoes. And so, but it's a very running related organization, and the people in Boulder, like the fixers who know the people in the country, there's a journalist, Mike Sandrock, there's Anna Weir, who speaks fluent French and Spanish. Like, they ensure that shoes go into the hands of people. So it's like a direct, it's not just like Americans dropping their crap in other countries and hoping it gets somewhere good, So it was really cool to be a part of an organization that does micro good, because so much we're like, oh, what can we do these days to like actually make a difference? It's like, well, it's something as simple as like bringing a pair of shoes or a duffel bag full of to a place and then physically handing themselves to a runner you can look in the eye and speak like really bad Spanish to and say, enjoy these shoes. And so, yeah, it was a pretty taxing trip just because we were in a remote part of Guantanamo province. So yeah, Guantanamo Bay, but we were in this area called Baracoa. It's hard to get to. It's like a 4-hour drive from the nearest other town over this like crazy road built during the revolution. And we put on a race for elite Cuban runners. And so that's who got the shoes this trip around. Elite Cuban runners from all over the country. There's like a guy, Henry, he runs a 2:15 marathon, and like, he doesn't have like good enough shoes to run it all the time.
Wow.
So it was really, really powerful. It's like, wow, we're around runners. We're not like, it was really, really neat.
So you're doing this as it's essentially a taper for you. Did you plan this trip ahead of time, or the race, or did things just kind of align this way very close together?
Yeah, well, one of the organizers of it I met, he writes for the Daily Camera in Boulder, and he's written a bunch of running books. But I said, Rock, at the beginning of the year, it was like, I want to get on a trip. And he was like, we're going to Cuba in February. And I was like, sign me up. I'm coming. And it was perfect. I mean, people freak out about travel, and yes, it wasn't ideal. I definitely had heavy legs starting the race. But I just think like life's too short to put trips that really do make sense to take on hold. And yes, I'm a professional runner, but this is it means so much. It just makes sense to do this versus, put my legs up. So yeah, no regrets. Even if I say had DNF'd or something, Black Canyon, or had gotten 10th or 3rd.
There you go.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. So yeah.
When did you get back to the States then?
Yes. Oh no, I got back like 1 a.m. on Thursday night. I flew directly from Miami to Phoenix, and then crashed by the airport, then drove up to this ranch of a relative in Arizona, and like got like these cattle tours. The cattles were all having babies, the cows, the heifers. And yeah, and then I went to the race on Saturday morning.
The Friday of the race, like, so the day before the race, she ran at the Phoenix terminal. I saw, like, did her little baby strides outside the terminal that I had, and I'm like, oh my God, Claire, it's a golden ticket race.
My rental car, because I didn't want to pay an extra day, so I was like, oh, I'll just get the rental car in the morning. But like, it's very awkward to run into an airport saying you need a rental car, outside, sweaty.
I love this because you're vying for a golden ticket. You want to do well at this. Obviously, the things that you did in the week probably far surmount any accomplishment that would happen at Black Canyons, but you are going for one of the 2 coveted tickets to Western States, and the day before you're like getting your strides in at the airport. Like, I kind of love this. I love this. Yeah, I'll get it done. I'll get it done where I need to get it done. But then you also end up at a cattle ranch, and you're watching cows being birthed. Like,
it was great. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It sounds awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah, I learned a lot. One baby had gotten eaten by a coyote. It was kind of depressing and morbid. And so, yeah, there's, I think it's so good to go into a big race with a lot to run for, other than just the race. So during the race, I was thinking of Adelante, hasta la victoria siempre. And that's what they say. That's like a revolution slogan of Fidel Castro and Che. And, there's a lot of nuances to that, we don't have to go into a history lesson. But, it's like running for people who have a lot less than ourselves. And I know David's big on that with swap, some work, all play. And so that's why I think we vibe. Even though some of the things I do aren't the best, they aren't that coachable. Yeah.
We have my favorite. Go ahead, David.
Oh, my favorite thing about Claire is in her intro email to me, like with her goals. Before all of her running goals, she just had, I just want to basically help the world through environmental stewardship and social rights, social justice issues, and do that through running. Plus these things of like these big running goals. And I love that came first. No one's ever done that before in any email. And like, I coach a lot of pros and lots of normal people too, and no one's ever done that. So I was looking at that today, going back, and I mean, that was pretty shocking to me.
I mean, I think that's fantastic. Yeah. And I think that's what's going to make you stand out, Claire, is these social issues, as well as the fact that there's an element of play in a lot of this too, and keeping things light and enjoyable rather than so heavy, and you don't put so much focus on like, gotta win. If I don't win, things are over, right? Like, let's enjoy this race and have some fun and that sort of thing. We have lots of live questions.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Well, I want to make sure
there's actually a couple questions for Coach David. So maybe we'll get to a couple of those now.
Sure.
Question from Cameron. David, how do you tackle coaching an athlete with such an unusual approach to nutrition?
Well, I think that gets back to Claire's approach to everything. So I went back into her log, and like, everything's hidden from the beginning days, but I went back to her very first day, and I guess she internalized something I said to her, because in every single like spreadsheet column across the way, so like 8 different columns, it said multiple focuses translates to multiple weaknesses. So
yeah, David had said that.
Yeah. So
but I was like, damn, that's good.
So like Claire is an adventurer at heart, and that she applies that to nutrition choices too. And I think with someone like that, that's really special, you gotta let their nature come through. You can't try to fight back against that until it becomes, you want to push back against like self-destruction. But to that point, like that's what makes her incredible. She wouldn't be Claire. She wouldn't be one of the best runners in the world if she didn't have that, like, if she wasn't the type of person that would have frosting or, birth a cow the day before a race or whatever. So, I mean, I love that. To me, that's way, way cooler than, I don't know, hitting a workout or something like that. And so I try to build in a lot of flexibility for how she does things. And I think basically you just got to let Claire be Claire.
Well, I think that's awesome as a coach that you're able to kind of identify that sort of thing and be able to step back and let some things be what they are.
Versus everything being like cookie cutter and
Yeah.
having to be this way and
You
this way.
better stick to this thing that I'm
Right.
designing. I guess that poses its own unique challenges. David, as someone who's probably educated in all sorts of nutrition and coaching and styles and stuff like that, do you ever try to sneak in like, hey, maybe you should like try eating something normal on this training run? I mean, do you ever do anything like that, or is it just go for it?
I don't know if you caught her comment there. So this is actually Claire and I's first time like catching up for a long period of time since the race. But she said that she relied on gels a little bit too much in the course of the race. That was definitely Coach David's fault, because I sent a long previous email with the normal like ridiculousness that I would, but within it had like full nutrition advice. And the context of that is, I think by pushing back a little bit against Claire and that by trying to make her more of a formula, I think maybe that wasn't the best strategy in this particular race. So, as a coach, you got to learn each athlete. So like Claire is this free spirit, but so is Hillary Allen, who I also coach. They train together a lot. And they're very different than like one of their other best friends that they train with named Kat Bradley from Boulder, who's going to rock the scene this year. And Kat, she's like, she adventures, but she also is willing to like go by the numbers a little bit more all the time. And so
Sure.
I view coaching more as like a guided friendship, like a friend being like, guys, let's think about this a little bit more than like, guys, let's do this. And I think that's why hopefully this with Claire will really work out well long-term.
That's great. And I definitely want to get back to a little bit of the Black Canyon, because we do actually have some Black Canyon volunteers in the chat room that are watching the show, and they are mentioning just how impressed they were, not only with you, Claire, but every runner that was out there in those adverse conditions. So let's talk a little bit about the race itself then for you. You mentioned very briefly that your legs weren't turning over quite as well as maybe you'd hoped at the beginning, understandably so, having traveled back from Cuba 24 hours before the race start. How was it unfolding for you? Was the competition pretty fierce up front right away? Were you just kind of biding your time? Let's kind of walk through the race.
Yeah, well, it was fortuitous because I get there, it's dark, it's raining in the parking lot, and I'm like running to go, find a porta potty right before the race. And I was like, oh, Nicole, hey, what's up? And I know Nicole, who was the winner, Nicole K. I don't want to butcher your name, Nicole. And then I turned to my boyfriend. I was like, Lenny, Nicole's here. She's really good. And that was awesome. I was so happy to see her. And usually, you get pre-race jitters when you see someone last minute that you didn't know was going to be in the race. And thing is, Nicole raced so hard. And from the beginning, I was like, whoa, this girl is running. Like, I am not ready for this. But this race, it was so hard because of the elements. I was freezing from the start. And I was just really afraid of bonking. I didn't want to bonk, so that's why I was just shoving so many gels down my face. And the turnover, I just was so impressed with Nicole's turnover. I thought I had a strong downhill and road background, but just because I've been training a lot on the roads in Boulder, because the trails are just complete crap right now, or they're just slow. But Nicole's from Dallas. She's just fast, and that was apparent from the get-go. And this course, as the volunteers know who are in the chat room and stuff, is very windy. It's very snaky. It's a single track mountain bike course. And didn't love it for that reason, because it's hard for me. I'm very much a rhythm runner. where a long stretch is great. Like give me a 10-mile straight stretch. Like that's way, way better. Whereas Nicole is able to accelerate around these corners really well. And so that just wore on me. I'm like, oh my God, you know, she's just like so good around these corners. And then eventually though, we were like, well, we're in this together, you know, 30 miles goes by. Oh, hey, we're still here. You know? So we're chatting and we're like, where do we go? You know? So it was a pleasure to run with such a great runner. She's a lawyer and she ran at Northwestern. So even though she's 10 years older than me, but it was cool to make a new friend from that. And anyone in any ultra, especially one with really adverse conditions, can agree that, you know, those are memories you'll remember forever.
Yeah, I definitely want to make sure I shout out as well, Nicole. I'm gonna attempt to pronounce this correctly. Gallagheropoulos. Gallagheropoulos is my attempt. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but Nicole K crushed it as well. An incredible race for her. She was the first place female, managed to get a golden ticket. And of course, I have to shout out the two gentlemen that also placed first and second. Alex Nichols, who we got to get on the show as well. Alex Nichols is a phenom, and Elav Olsen. They just did incredible things. So like you mentioned briefly the conditions. What were they like? So this race is notorious for being like perfect weather, maybe warm. What was it like?
It's funny. It's notorious for being extremely warm. And so, you know, David was like, get in a dry sauna before. Well, no, not with that voice.
David, you are a monster.
Actually, that's exactly the voice I text in. But then I like soften it with like a heart-based energy.
Because David is so good with all the caps, you know, all of the exclamation points.
David is the Saw movie. He is the Saw movie.
Exactly. And I even poisoned my dog. That was part of it. We'll get to that.
It's so funny. But yeah, and I thought, oh, Cuba, it's going to be great heat training. And then, okay, no, Tuesday, week of race. Jamil, who puts on the race, he was like, hey, course change. They were expecting major flooding. The ground was already saturated, and in a saturated desert, you know, you can't have like a washout flood. So it turned into an out and back, the net downhill point to point. So yeah, that totally changed the game. And at the end of the day, I was like, during the race, I was like, oh, actually, I'm really grateful for this uphill, because that was one thing I actually was being strong at. So started out, pretty much stayed raining, and then it stayed raining again, and then it got dry for like an hour. But yeah, it was just a complete mud fest, like a total cluster. I'm surprised people didn't lose their shoes.
Too soon, Claire.
We will talk about that when we cover David's race. It sounded like a blast as well. I mean, just some of the pictures from this race.
Yeah.
I mean, when we saw the course change, and when Jamil and the Aravaipa crew had to make the course change, it was obvious that things were going to get nasty. I mean, just California got bombarded with some.
Yeah, you guys.
But I mean, you guys basically got the residual that ended up just flying over Arizona, which just destroys it. Was the course extremely slippery? Is the mud conditions there, are they very slippery, or is it like the kind of mud that you get good grip in? Because that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it was the first 10 miles and last 10 miles, you were going so slowly because it was so slippery, and it was just like quicksand that stuck to you. So, and then there were definitely some really sticky, nice single track parts, and then some nice gravel roads, but or dirt roads. So it could have been a lot worse. Yeah. But yeah.
We got more live questions from those who are watching live. If you have a question, don't forget to drop it into the chat room. Kim's pulling them aside here.
Yeah, question from Wing Taylor. Claire was 11 minutes behind Nicole and only 6 minutes ahead of Elisa. Is that right? In third. What was the competition like? Was it more like you were chasing Nicole or more trying to stay in front of Elisa?
Yeah, so Elisa had a great race. I missed her afterwards. And she must have closed like a bat out of hell, because Nicole and I were together, I think at one point, maybe with like 20 miles to go, 20 minutes ahead or something, or 17 minutes ahead, I think it was, at 42 miles. So then Nicole took off. I slowed down, and yeah, Lisa closed really, really strongly, but we were never running together. It was Nicole and I pretty much the whole day. Yeah.
Did you know at any point splits? Like, were you keeping track of that at all?
Yeah, the last split that I was told was 17 minutes behind. And that was at mile 42. So, and then actually, no, I take that back. Then my crew, this awesome friend Wilson, stayed at 54 for 10 minutes. So that's what I'm saying. Like, Elisa really, really close because she hadn't passed after me for 10 minutes. So, yeah, and I admittedly slogged in a little bit. So, yeah, that's a great question.
So what would you say would be the toughest part from Black Canyons in your experience from this last weekend for you?
Really, I think I learned about myself that I don't like snaky single track wines. And I felt this way similarly after the Moab Marathon. And I don't want to like just say, talk about courses I don't do well on, but I just learned that I do a lot better when I can get in really long grooves and that I need to work on accelerating out of these tracks, So, and anyone, who does enough races, you learn, you can't just look at the elevation profile and then choose a race. It's so much more than that. So that was cool. Yeah. And then rain, that's sweet. It's just, it makes you stronger. Yeah.
Well, so I guess the next question is, leading into states, are you going to be doing anything different to your training to help adapt to the winding single track? I mean, there are long sections of, well, I don't want to say runnable, but there are long sections at states where you can kind of get into a groove, but there's lots of winding, a lot of zigzagging. How are you going to train for that?
I'm going to listen to my coach.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I'm going to stop skiing at a reasonable time this year. No. Yeah. Well, I really want to get out there before June 22nd, so I want to see some of the course and then also just really maybe put an emphasis on getting over myself. Like, okay, whatever, Claire, you think you're bad at these winding things, get over yourself. But that takes time, right? To have that meditative thought process of, no, you can be a better runner at this if you just do it more. I have a ton of trails like this in Boulder that I can practice, run more on versus, up and down trails. So it's really I have to take responsibility for that and be responsible, be a responsible runner. So I'm not, so we don't talk, and July 1st, and you're like, so how are those windy single tracks?
What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think she's being a little hard on herself because like Claire has strengths and then things that are still strengths, but like slightly less strong. And that's what this is. I mean, when Claire started this training block, like she was coming, off a period of less running, coming off North Face, and was skiing a lot. So, I mean, she pretty much came from the slopes to Cuba to Black Canyon and got a golden ticket. And mission accomplished for her because that was the only goal going in, was to get to Western States. So, yeah, I think what she thinks is her weakness is probably actually like, she's probably better at that than almost anyone. Than almost anyone. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think Western States course suits her like perfectly. From the mountain section at the beginning, from the like higher elevation stuff at the beginning to the long windy stuff that you'll see in like Way Too Cool in the course that I did this weekend.
Yeah, it'll be, Claire, honestly, this is going to be real fun to follow. What's so awesome and unique about states is just the top 10 get invited back. So,
right.
You can use this as an opportunity to explore the course and crush it next year, or you can come crush it this year because you'll have a chance to see it beforehand. And it's such a fun course. Like, I'm so excited to see you just barnstorm it. Because I think David's right. Having done what you did at Leadville, the whole front half of this course is very similar. A lot of climbing, high altitude, gorgeous views. This is going to be awesome. That's why I'm like so excited to have all the golden ticket runners and stuff on the shows, just kind of talk about them. And you're just going to have such a fun time.
Cool. Yeah, thanks.
Huge congratulations on Black Canyon 100K.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You deserve the round of applause.
Thanks.
And, you deserve the frosting sponsorship. I hope that they send you just cases and cases of it. Now,
so good.
Basically, Kim and I are writing notes to each other. Can we get frosting tonight?
Yeah.
Can we have that for dinner? Frosting for dinner. But while we have Claire, and again, Claire, if you have to go, I totally understand. There are jalapeno burgers waiting for you. Yeah. We're going to talk to David. And so now I feel like Claire can also give us some insight into David, having worked with him. So David this last weekend ran at the USATF 50K Championships, which another pretty monstrous 50K that had a lot of big names show up. Max King, for example. Max King took the big win. Cole Watson took second place, but our lovely David here on the show tonight took third.
Our lovely
David, who we have about 20 minutes before he dies because the saws and blades. I'm sorry. My wife is like, don't make those jokes. But David, you had very similarly to Claire, you had an interesting lead up to this race that kind of altered plans.
Yeah, I feel like we need to clear up the dog situation because the way you led into it.
And I never covered it again. It was
no, you just kind of like left it as that.
It's a big old carrot to dangle. It's how we keep the listeners listening. So David, explain your race and what led up to it.
So, well, let's start. My wife, Megan, who's a much better runner, person, and dog owner than I am. She's working in the hospital pretty late on Friday night, and so she gets home late, and we're traveling out. So I pack my dog Addie, which is her name, her food in a plastic bag that had just been sitting around in the back of the dog container, thinking, oh, I'm being environmentally friendly, and this is great. And so the next morning, it's like 5 a.m. We got in a little after midnight. Tired, grab the bag, start pouring it in, go back, lie down with Megan. And then a few minutes later, come out, and I see the plastic bag. I'm like, what are those two little blue things in there? And it turns out that they had a leave written on them. And so I'm like, okay, not a big deal. Megan doesn't have to know. This is just like, Addie got some leave. Addie's strong. She's a tough girl. So I go on my phone, and I'm like, all right, dogs, a leave, and then it autofills. It's like, death. Oh no. So I'm like, Megan, we might have a problem. And so basically we went to the whole thing with like peroxide in the dog, but the problem with Addie is like, I think probably a lot of people watching this have met Addie at races and things. In addition to being like the most delightful little creature, she also has an iron stomach and will eat anything. So we couldn't induce her to throw up because peroxide, she was just like, this is delicious. I love this.
Yeah.
And so basically Megan's like, okay, I've got this. She took control. The doctor in her, maybe she's like an honorary vet after today. So she went down to the race site, and we were talking about what to do. She's like, David, you're racing. Dropped me off, gave me a big old kiss, and said, run hard, and said it's all going to be okay. And so she went to the vet and dropped me off at the start of the 50K, like right before the start, without a warm-up. I got to talk to Eric Strands from Ultra Runner Podcast for a bit, and then it was like go time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, hopefully my dog isn't dead. Because like Addie is like number one creature other than Megan in the world. So so yeah, it was. So that was an interesting way to start, and that's how the race began.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't. We have a dog who's snoring. You'll hear it in a second because it's very loud. But I can't imagine poisoning your own dog, David. But then handing it off to your wife, and your wife was also supposed to run. And I mean, you basically made the decision that, okay, Megan, she's taking the dog, and then you're racing. Like, I can't imagine. Yeah, basically Megan, going, I'll see you in a bit. Save our dog.
Megan has Way Too Cool in 2 weeks, so that's going to be the focus now. So I didn't feel like I felt really bad about her not racing, but I mostly felt bad about poisoning the dog. Fortunately, I think both turned out great. Megan got 2 amazing long runs in, and Addie didn't die. So
yes. We have to make people are probably waiting with bated breath, but yes, the dog is fine.
It's like the anti-Marley and Me. It ends like opposite of a dog's purpose.
Spoilers for those who haven't seen Marley and Me. We were watching it tonight, but apparently we won't now. Very sad ending. So your race. You are racing some incredible athletes, extremely fast. There are names that you are very familiar with as being, top of the game. But you are dealing also with this mental side of things of like, well, how is my dog and wife doing? Did you ever get updates throughout the race, or were you able to focus just on the race? Like, how did that play out for you? So
I didn't get updates during the race. So basically the race, to use Claire's word, was a cluster for me personally the whole time. But so it started in, my strategy in all these races, and my strategy with Claire too is like, if you don't think you're going to win, you don't stand a chance of winning. So I always try to race to win. And tried to run it like Way Too Cool last year, where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the front, try to get out of sight and see what happens. And wasn't able to do that. But so I was running in the lead, and Andy Wacker, who's an incredible runner, unfortunately fell and hurt his knee and had to get stitches. So
it was
so
a
I was
nasty
running,
looking gash too. Pretty nasty. Yeah.
And I mean, I would have loved to see what happened with him and Max in that race. But
Yeah.
so I'm running in front of Cole in second and Max in third. And we're at like mile 8 or 9, going down towards No Hands Bridge after the first few major climbs. And I'm feeling really good about myself, like trying to take turns tight and cut people off and stuff like that. Not cut people off, but like, you know, like if they fall,
Punch people in the
Like
nuts.
pushing people on the ground.
Yeah,
Stabbing.
if Max King falls, the ground gets hurt. It's not Max that gets hurt. But no, so I'm doing that, and there's a muddy section that the race director, Paolo Medina, warned me about, and just going through it, and all of a sudden, come up for a step, and my shoe is gone, like completely buried in mud. And Max just runs by and like, that sucks. So I'm sitting there, and the hard part was this. I don't know where my shoe is because it was buried so deep under this big mud pit, and it was huge that I was like, no. Unfortunately, there was another race going on, a 13K, that was doing the same thing on back, and 2 men there in crazy small world stuff. One of the other athletes I coach knows one of the guys that helped me here, so I need to get that name and thank him on air at some point. But they were on their hands and knees, like searching for gold, trying to find my shoe. At mile like 8 or 9 of this race. So yeah, I think that's also a lesson that on how to tie your shoes a little better. But so fortunately, one of the guys ended up finding my shoe after what seemed like forever. I'm not sure exactly how long it was. And he promised we couldn't get it out because it was buried under so much mud. So he's down like with both hands trying to pull it out. I'm trying to help. We get it out, it's filled with mud. And then I can't even get it on because it's like too tight to get on, but not tight enough for the mud to get off. So long story short, eventually got it on with like all the detritus in there. And so, you know, it was one of those moments actually that like, considering like what's even the point of racing now, you know, I'm not going to have a chance to ever catch those guys. Like I needed everything to go right to even have a shot to be close to those guys. And,
Sure.
You know, but fortunately it's one of those moments. It's like, okay, you know, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because like, you know, I love Megan, I love Addie, and then my team, like the athletes I coach, like I always say to them is I don't care about results even a little bit. All I care is that like, you know, like in my previous email to Claire, I'm just talking about everyone in the course. I want them to think, you know, I want you to light up their lives and like, you know, for you to enjoy the process and stuff. So yeah, basically it turned into a 22-mile like struggle fest of constantly losing my shoe and trying to get to the finish line. But thank God that eventually I saw Megan and Addie out on the course, and that made everything better and made the struggle a little bit more joyous.
I can imagine seeing them, and were you able to relay your side of the story of your day? Like, you wouldn't believe how bad it's been out there. Like, were you able to? No time for that.
And Megan, like, she cares, but she doesn't care about my results. So all she was like, oh my God, he's happy and he's healthy, he's alive. So I knew that she just wanted to see me like, and she wanted to see, now that the dog's not dead, she wanted to see me not dead, and mission accomplished. So it was like mile 23. So this is right at Cool, so where Way Too Cool starts. So it's an area that means a lot to us since we both have gone there a few times and had some good moments there. And she's just there with Addie screaming like, we love you from really far. And so, yeah, that kind of put everything in perspective and, you know, reminded me that, okay, I can get to the finish line. There'll be a hug and a kiss waiting for me, and I'll try not to poison my dog in the future.
Good lessons.
David could lose both his shoes, all of his clothes, you know, like actually, you know, have a really, really horrible day and finish, and then just be like, great day, everyone.
Well, the difference is if I lost all my clothes, everyone else would be like, no, this is not a great day. It's a terrible day.
You know, yeah, your energy is, it's cool that you actually practice what you preach, you know, so much so. You guys would just die if you read his pre-race emails and just the coaching stuff he gives. You know, he's like, I don't care. He truly says, I don't care how your day goes, but you better be smiling, thanking every volunteer. Like, this is such a privilege, you know, which is just so rad because it's so true. So yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man. And when I wrote David an email just to be on the show, his first response was, "I will kill for you." Like it was obvious that David's like, "Yes, I want to be on the show. Like whatever we can do to make it happen." And I was like, "This is really
Just
cool."
not my dog.
Right,
Just not my dog.
I just won't kill my dog. And yeah, Kim says like, "Yeah, just don't let him see Gus or feed Gus." So yeah,
exactly.
you're not allowed around our dog, but you seem like a great guy. This was great. We're going to kind of wrap up the main show here, and I think. Go ahead.
Can we just maybe just touch on the gear they use
That-
real quick?
That's exactly what I was going to talk. Yeah, it's okay. Because you're both new guests, we have a little quickie question quiz, and part of the quickie question quiz is what gear you guys are rocking. But before we get to that, I feel like we do have a lot of people who watch the show who maybe are brand new to the ultra scene, or maybe even very experienced, but maybe looking to level up or do another distance or try something new. We have a lot of people who just they want to try something new. A piece of advice, I think, your best piece of advice to give to someone who maybe is looking to do their first ultra or step it up to the next level. So, David, let's start with you. What is your this again? It could be a really broad question, but what would be like a pretty good piece of advice that you would give someone starting out in ultra or looking to step up the distance?
Well, just all this stuff is about the process. It's not a month or two or year resolution. It's the type of thing where you want to step back and think of yourself long term of, okay, I'm committing to the daily grind of this whole sport and of running and of self-betterment and all those different things, and sticking through it, like when things are going amazingly and you're improving, and also when things are going terribly and you're injured, and that you're just going to stay steady through those moments and have that long-term perspective. Because really in this sport, you're never going to know what you're capable of until you're putting in consistency day after day after day and not getting derailed by like the things that happen in life, that you go to Cuba and that's, service trip in Cuba, you're still getting your golden ticket when you come back on Saturday, like your brain, your mindset doesn't change. And so, yeah, just wake up every morning with that positive attitude and like even write it on your fridge. I'm like looking over at our fridge right now and it just says, love the process today. And it also says, F it in big letters to also like that whole philosophy. But yeah, so love the process.
Nice.
I love that. Claire, what about you?
That's so funny. Well, definitely. Well, you should just get David to coach you. It's so funny. I have a whiteboard in the corner of my room, and it says, "What are your goals?" ? Number one is running, and then the sub goal underneath that is listen to David. I kid you not. And I did, and that was a big when I realized, okay, I really need help. I can't do this just like coaching myself. So, but going back, I think sort of a foil to David's piece of advice is also to take it easy, especially with really to not take yourself too seriously, especially with the sport of trail running. Right. One of the main reasons we all love it so much is this community that we're different than road runners. I love road runners, right? Like, and track runners, but it's different. I think there's more harmony with nature. There's more harmony around community. And so in doing though, and really embracing that aspect of the sport, then you'll go from there, then the process starts. Like, it's got to start with a smile and a lot of stoke to get out in nature. Then then everyone will be earth raging and yeah.
I love it. I mean, I don't know. I really like unique perspectives, and I think both of these tonight are fantastic. I'm excited to get you guys back on the show individually as well. You both are just a delight, and this was a blast. And a huge congratulations to both of you on your epic performances this weekend. Claire, you're going to Western States. I think that's pretty damn awesome. Are you? I mean, are you stoked? Are you?
Oh
what's your level of stoke?
It's so high.
It's at least 11.
I'm going to catch up a little bit on sleep. I'm really excited. I'm not going to lie. I'm really excited to ski a lot more. and during the race, I was like, I think it would be cool to do another golden ticket race, possibly like Sonoma or something, talk to David and whatnot. But it's just really nice for it to be February and to know I'm going. Huge relief.
Doing Grand Traverse with Hillary, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
that'll be awesome.
It's a 40-mile skimo race, and David coaches Hillary. It's so funny. So David coaches a lot of women and people in Boulder, and all of us obviously talk about him all the time behind his back. And we don't know when in the day he does everything. So, like when you have time to coach everyone and be a lawyer and be husband to super wife, like
We're gonna have to pick your brain because I
know. Yeah, you need
totally
to get a guy for that.
No secrets are being given away.
Yeah.
And I really just want to know how you're going to survive the saw chamber that you're in. Not to bring that back up, but you got about 10 minutes left of air. Since he's our brand new guest to the show, first time on air, before we move into the post show, so for those of you who are new to Ginger Runner Live, welcome. We're glad to have you. Subscribe to the channel, 2 new videos every single week, including new episodes of Ginger Bits, which will be happening every time we do some new adventures and stuff like that. But subscribe, and if you would like to help keep the lights on and the mics hot, go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. For as little as $1 a month, it basically allows Kim and I to do this full time. This is the full-time job. We are not elite runners. We do not win races, but we
do love frosting.
We do love frosting. So consider, and if you are a Patreon supporter, we will be doing a quick post show with David and possibly Claire, if she can stick around, and it will be here right after this little quickie question quiz with our guests. So that link I just posted on the Patreon side. So if you're a Patreon supporter, the link is already there. We'll see you guys in just a couple of minutes. Before we get to that, we have 2 new guests tonight. And as per tradition, I have a list of questions. They're very easy, very simple. I read through them as quickly as possible, and you guys answer as quickly as possible. And I think since we have 2 guests tonight, we'll do it in this order. I'll ask the question. We'll have David, then Claire. Yeah. I'll ask a question, David, Claire. So I'll wait for both of you guys to give me the thumbs up, and I will just start ripping through. Got him.
Oh, okay.
Good. Okie dokie.
They passed the first question.
Ooh, all right, first question down. David, what was your very first race?
Oh, gosh. I went to college as a football player, which sounds crazy now. So it wasn't until very late in life. And so then did a trail 10K in Wissahickon Park in Philadelphia. And
Claire.
Just loved it.
Claire, what was your first race?
Middle school mile.
Crushed it.
Beat all the boys.
Yeah. David, what's your favorite running movie?
The one with Kevin Costner that just came out. What's that called?
Oh, yeah. What is that called? Oh, that one with Kevin Costner that just came out.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's my standard answer for everything.
Claire, favorite running movie?
Well, there's running in Miracle. There's sprinting in Miracle, and I love that movie.
We'll count it. We'll count it. And I will also say that REI just did a fantastic movie on Claire, which is available to view on their webpage and stuff. It's fantastic. You get to see Claire eat tortilla chips with sriracha it's almond milk, correct?
Yep, correct, yeah.
Tasty. Yeah. It's tasty. All right, David, trails or road?
Trails.
Definitely
Claire?
trails, even though some people in Boulder would say, oh, you run on the roads too much. But if you run on trails every day, you're going to get slow, right? Yeah. Like if you're going uphill.
Constant struggle with coaching. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. David, favorite place to run currently?
Anywhere in the peninsula in the Bay Area. So Rancho San Antonio, right outside my door here in Palo Alto.
Claire?
I mean, I feel like it's current. Where I just was in Cuba, it's called Baracoa, rural place in Guantanamo province. Holy crap. Like agricultural fields with dirt roads, no cars because cars like aren't there. Yeah, I want to go back. But yeah, wherever I'm at, I try to embrace it,
Sure. David, bucket list race.
Oof. My first bucket list is actually, I've never done a 50 miler, so I really want to do Lake Sonoma at some point, but not this year.
You should come do it this year. We'll be there.
Might spectate some of my athletes, do some crewing, so nice. we can say hi.
Sure. Claire, bucket list race.
Comrades. I really, really want it, even though it's a road race. Yeah, gotta get to South Africa. Yeah, be a part of that history.
A lot of history there, for sure. Yeah. I'm interested in the answer to this one. David, guilty pleasure TV show.
Ooh, guilty pleasure. Well, right now we're getting way too much joy out of Planet Earth 2. We watched it last night and we're like going crazy, like cheering, and then like really being depressed at times, but then cheering again when they got out. So
yeah.
That's our pleasure.
Claire?
That's awesome. So I'm obsessed with climbing videos. And so it's not a TV show, but I will go on YouTube rants of climbing, like especially a lot of baller, some of my North Face teammates. Oh my gosh. I don't know how to do it, but I will watch it for hours.
Have you got to hang with Honnold at all?
No, I was only at the athlete summit this year because I just joined the team, and
Right.
he was one of the few people not there. Yeah,
He's kind of one of those like bucket list celebrities you just want to meet and be like, how,
Yeah.
and he'll never be able to answer. Okay, this is the one that people have been asking for. Kim has been asking for gear. David, what is your go-to pair of shoes right now? What did you race in on Saturday?
Challenger ATR 3 from Hoka. Best like dual road trail shoe that like ever. I know, and if Jim Walmsley runs really what he does in it, then good enough for everyone. So
yeah,
that's the go-to shoe.
Claire.
Tied a little tighter than I did.
I'm wearing them right now because I just came from cross country practice. The Light Wave. It's
nice.
the Light Wave second edition North Face. So these shoes, I think a lot of the North Face runners race in these. They're really they're light. They don't have a rock plate, but I wore them straight out of the box because I gave away my pair in Cuba. And then so my manager sent them to Arizona, and I wore them straight out of the box to race in. These aren't the pair, these are different because the other ones are really muddy and no blisters and all that mud. So yeah, highly recommend them for racing.
Nice. And that is it for the Quickie Question Quiz. You guys both passed. Congratulations. Yay. Another big thank you to Clare Gallagher and David Roche for joining us on tonight's Ginger Runner Live. So first of all, David, thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
Yay, David!
And thank you very much, Claire.
Oh, thanks.
Go Claire.
Yay. And remind people where they can find you on social media. A lot of our viewers love to go follow up and maybe ask some residual questions and stuff like that. So David, where can they find you online?
Twitter at Mountain Roach, my last name. And you can also, my email's plastered all over the internet, right for Trail Runner. Just, spam my inbox, like send me puppy pictures, whatever you want.
And
Don't
Claire,
respond because he gets it done. I don't think they sleep in that household.
there is no sleep. And Claire, you have the best Twitter handle. I think.
I was gonna say that's my favorite one.
Thanks, guys. I'm still trying to be a little bit more active on Twitter. But sometimes my handle's Puppies on Mountains. Well, the abbreviation MTS. Yay! Shout out to the Princeton Tiger ladies who made that for me. Or they were like, "You need to be on Twitter." No, this was 6 years ago or something. Now I still have it. Clare Gallagher runs on Instagram _in-between. Yeah, I'm on Facebook too.
Go shout them out. Show them some love. You guys know the drill. And again, we are going to do a real quick post show with them because we have questions. You pulled a lot of questions aside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So go ahead.
And just a quick question for David while we're still in the
Sure.
main show. David, are you currently taking new clients?
Great question.
Yeah, I'll always take on new people if we're a good fit, but my only goal is each runner's happiness and fulfillment. So if I'm not the right one for you, I have a lot of coaches that I could refer you to if you just have a different philosophy, since I know some of the stuff that we talked about today isn't everyone's philosophy on things, and there are coaches that fit everyone. But yeah, I love hearing from people, love trying to help however I can.
Look into it. Obviously, David and Megan are power couple, super fast. And
have Megan on the show.
Super intimidating to follow them. You just see their daily workouts, and you're like, how the hell?
Yeah,
I don't have a job.
Everyone.
It's a great way to feel completely insignificant. Thank you everyone for watching live tonight. If you are a Patreon supporter, go head over to Patreon right now. We're going to jump into a quick post show with our two guests and answer a lot of the questions that did not get asked or answered during the main show. Otherwise, we will see you guys next week. Both Kim and I have new videos coming out on Friday or earlier this week. So make sure you check out both of our channels, subscribe, and that's pretty much it. Am I missing anything?
I think that's all.
Get out there, train hard, race harder, party hardest. We'll see you guys next week. Woohoo!
Yay! Thanks, guys.
Ginger Runner.